Thank you so much. Thank you, Cam. Thank you, everybody. I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest with you. My dad always told me two things about giving speeches. One, never say anything bad about the Jews. And two, tell an interesting story.
Right, so look, this was a very big day concerning Roger Stone. His home in Florida wasn't the only one the FBI searched this morning. Agents also showed up at the Manhattan duplex that he shares with my next guest, Kristen Davis, once testified before Mueller's grand jury. Welcome back to Primetime. Thank you. I know this is not what you want to be doing right now, but you want to support your friend. How concerned are you?
I mean, I'm concerned. They've obviously indicted him already, and he's been arrested. I'm also concerned because I watch CNN all day long, and everyone had an opinion, but nobody really knows Roger personally, and most of their opinions are based on their own agenda. So I think we should put some things in context. And it was the officer that arrested me in 2013, and he said, I've been sent. I don't know anything about this, but I've been sent because you know I treated you kindly in the past, and you have a young child. We want to treat you kindly now.
But didn't you move?
I moved, so there's no joint duplex anymore. So it's I've moved.
So did they search the right place?
Well, Roger Stone doesn't have a New York apartment anymore, so his stuff is in
apartment.
storage. No, they searched the remnants of the apartment that we had that's currently being liquidated to storage.
Have you worked out who she is? She's Roger Stone's lover and has his love child. They live together in New York City in an apartment. Okay. Now we've established that. Here is Kristen Davies on the documentary with Matt Damon about the 2008 housing crisis collapse as she talks about her 10,000 clients as a prostitute madam, half of which were Wall Street brokers. Here.
How many customers?
About 10,000 at that point in time.
What fraction were from Wall Street?
Of the higher end clients, probably 40 to 50%.
And were all the major Wall Street firms represented? Goldman Sachs?
Lehman Brothers, yeah, they're all in there.
Morgan Stanley was a little less of that. I think Goldman was pretty big with that.
A lot of clients would call me and say, can you get me a Lamborghini for the night for the girl? These guys were spending corporate money. I had many black cards from, the various financial firms.
What's happening is services are being charged to computer repair,
trading research, consulting for market compliance. They just usually gave them a piece of letterhead and said, make your own invoice.
So this pattern of behavior you think extends to the senior management of the firm?
Absolutely does. Yeah, I know for a fact that it does. It extends to the very top.
Okay, now you've worked out Kompramat. Compromising. What is the dirty trickster's main job? Roger Stone is to compromise people, politicians and business people for Israeli intelligence. That's his job. Donald Trump is surrounded by Israeli forces of Russian, Ukrainian and Polish origin. I'm going to establish that Israel is a Russian client state, not a US client state. I'm going to establish that Israel is a backdoor of the old Soviet Union, communism, centralized command and control technocracy based on scientific rationalism, Marxism, which is coming into its own today as scientific rationalism with AI and computing power. Okay, we're going to establish that Israel is a Russian state. It's not American, right? It's been infiltrated for a long time. Let's just get the list. Let's go to the screen. We'll go to the screen. This is the list of prime ministers of Israel. This is just matters that are notorious. These are notorious facts. There's no debating it. Prime ministers of Israel, you ready? We're going to go through every prime minister. Now I want you to guess where they all came from. Most famous, David Ben-Gurion. Remember him? I'm a Bolshevik. 1924. Big Stalin fan. They all are. David Ben-Gurion. Blah, 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 blah. His real name is David Grun. All right, where's he from? Where's he from? Let's have a look. David Ben-Gurion was born in Plonsk in Congress, Poland, then part of the Russian Empire. Okay, there's our first Ruski. Nothing against the Russian people. I'm a big fan of the Russian Orthodox Church. Let's move on to the next one. Moshe Sharet. Next one, you ready? Let's see where he was born. Was he born in Palestine, Iraq, Syria? No. Born in Kherson in the Russian Empire, today in Ukraine. He migrated to the Ottoman Palestine as a child in 1906 with his parents. Let's go to the next one. Levi Eshkol. Where's he from? Argentina. Levi Eshkol was born in a shtetl of Oratov Kiev Governorate, the Russian Empire. Ukraine. Next, Ukraine's very popular. Yigal Allon. Okay, Yigal Allon, he was actually just an acting prime minister. He was born in occupied Palestine. His parents came from Poland. Golda Meir. Where's Golda Meir born? Come on, let's take some bets. Golda Mabovich, not Golda Meir, Golda Mabovich was born on May 3rd in Kyiv, in the modern day Ukraine. So that's Golda Meir. Yitzhak Rabin. Wasn't a bad guy, this one. Tried his best for peace and paid for it with his life. Where was Yitzhak Rabin born? He was born in Jerusalem. Let's see where his parents are from. Immigrants of the third aliyah, the third wave of Jewish immigration to Palestine from Europe. They were born in a shtetl in southern Pale settlement, present-day Ukraine. His parents were Ukrainian. Menachem Begin, he must have been born in Egypt or Palestine, surely. Menachem Begin was born to Ziv Dov and Hasi Bagan, what was then Brest-Litovsk, today's Belarus, in the Russian Empire. It's in western Russia. Yitzhak Shamir, where's he born? Yitzhak Shamir, the predominantly Jewish village of Rosne, Grodno province in Belarus, western Russia. Boy! Shimon Peres, I swear he was born in Argentina, and then I realized no, he was born in Poland. He was born in West New Poland, now Belarus. Okay, so that's western Russia. Benji, of course, was born in occupied Palestine. His parents were from Poland. His father was from Poland, and his mother was from Poland originally. She was born in the region. Ehud Barak. He was born in a kibbutz in Palestine. His grandparents were from Lithuania in the Russian Empire. Ariel Sharon was born in Palestine. Where are his parents from? They were in the Republic of Georgia, just where Stalin was born. That's where his parents come from, Russia. Ehud Olmert. He was born in Palestine, escaped persecution in the Ukraine and Russia. His parents were from the Ukraine. Okay. So we've now established every single Israeli prime minister was either born in the Ukraine, Poland or Russia, or their parents came from the Ukraine, Poland or Russia. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? And David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, is famous for his quotations, "I'm a Bolshevik. Have I got your attention yet?" The quote, "I'm a Bolshevik," comes from an Israeli press article by journalist Tom Segev. Dated March 2013, Segev writes the title, "The USSR is our second homeland," said one kibbutznik when Stalin died. Incredible as it may seem, Stalin's Soviet Union was once at the center of Israeli identity. Let us quote extensively as we'll set the tone for the whole video. Listen carefully. The death notice published in the daily Al-Hamishma on May 6, 1953 quickly became one of the most cited documents in the history of Israeli politics. The United Workers' Party, it said, was shocked upon hearing of the great disaster that befell the peoples of the Soviet Union. The world's proletariat and all of progressive humanity with the loss of the great leader and illustrious military commander, Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin. The Soviet dictator was described there as a great revolutionary fighter, responsible for immense historic endeavours. But contrary to what is usually remembered, the appellation Son of the Nations, as supporters like to refer to Stalin, did not appear in the paper's announcement. 60 years later, the death notice could be seen on David Seller's Nostalgia website as if it merits only amused wistfulness. In fact, it is of interest to recall, incredible as it may seem, that Stalin's Soviet Union was once at the center of Israeli identity. In the first Knesset, the left-wing Mapam, or United Workers' Party, was the second largest faction with 19 seats. During the debate over the makeup of the government that was held in the Knesset on March 10, 1949, one of Mapam's two leaders, Yaakov Hassan and Kibbutz Mishma Hachmek, said, For us, the Soviet Union is the fortress of world socialism. It is our second homeland, the socialist one. That comment could go down as one of the 10 most quoted sentences in the history of Israeli politics. I was not happy when Hassan voiced that sentiment, wrote Mahir Yahari, Mapan's senior leader, a year later, although he went on to describe the People's Republic of China as a dictatorship that safeguards democracy there, adding, "This is the doctrine we have been nurturing for decades." Juicy. The article goes on. They were not the only ones harbouring such sentiments, of course. David Ben-Gurion returned in 1923 from a visit to the Soviet Union and declared, "I am a Bolshevik." Moreover, many of this country's early inhabitants were Russian-born. They spoke Russian, read books and sang songs in Russian, and thought and dreamed in Russian. Many of them owed their lives to the Red Army's war against Nazi Germany. Stalin was considered the father of the victory over Hitler. The communists here had it easier. All they had to do was listen to Radio Moscow. Zionist socialists had a hard time living with the murderousness of the son of the nations and with communist-tainted anti-Semitism. Wrangling over whether to be sympathetic or disapproving split communities and destroyed families. The two great leaders of Mapan wrote a bevy of letters back and forth that were kept for posterity. They are enlightening and will quote a summary of the rest of the article. It seems that Yahari saw in Hassan's criticism of the Soviet Union a betrayal of their friendship. And, for his part, Hassan wrote in a most conciliatory tone, assuring his colleague that, "I am certain the Soviet Union is not a dead planet. I am certain a day will come when there too the sun of true socialist liberty will shine in all its essence. Then the objective historian will come along and explain that what happened during Stalin's era and what is happening there today were stages en route to the future, just as the beheadings of Georges Jacques Danton was also one of the links on the way to victory of the Great French Revolution." Journalist Tom Segev ends the article with this last line. Yahari died in 1987, aged 90. Hassan passed away in 1992 at 93. Plenty of years in which to admit countless times that he had erred in describing the Soviet Union as a second homeland. I gather after the quotes from the above article you will begin to sense where this documentary is heading and are already pondering the ramifications of Israel and the United States being so close. Later, in 1962 in Life magazine, Ben-Gurion is quoted, "The image of the world in 1987 is traced in my imagination. The Cold War would be a thing of the past. Internal pressure of the constantly growing intelligentsia in Russia for more freedom and the pressure of the masses for raising their living standards may lead to a gradual democratization of the Soviet Union. On the other hand, the increasing influence of the workers and farmers and the rising political importance of men of science may transform the United States into a welfare state with a planned economy. Western and Eastern Europe will become a federation of autonomous states having a socialist and democratic regime. With the exception of the USSR as a federated Eurasian state, all other continents will become united in a world alliance at whose disposal will be an international police force. All armies will be abolished and there will be no more wars. In Jerusalem, the United Nations will build a shrine of the prophets to serve the federated union of all continents. This will be the seat of the Supreme Court of mankind to settle all controversies among the federated continents as prophesied by Isaiah." With the above in mind, the emerging close relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, Vladimir Putin of Russia, and Xi Jinping of China becomes more obvious. Understanding the central role of the Belt and Road Initiative to unfolding events, particularly in the Middle East, the Trump administration's main role becomes clearer in facilitating the final establishment of Greater Israel and the transfer of the US high-technology sector to Tel Aviv. This transfer of technology is occurring in the same manner as US heavy industry and manufacturing were moved to China and Asia beginning under the Nixon administration. Interestingly, the same people are involved, most notably Henry Kissinger and the Council on Foreign Relations, along with a bevy of young 20-somethings at the time that included, ironically, Roger Stone and Dr. Steve Pieczenik, players directly involved in bringing Donald Trump to power and keeping him there.
They are very similar in the sense that they're both brilliant, they're both combative, neither one is afraid to take on the media, that they appeal to the forgotten man, the silent majority, the blue-collar white Democrat that was part of the Nixon coalition, is now part of the Trump coalition. Ironically, it was former President Nixon who was, to my mind, the very first person who saw the possibilities of a Trump presidency. He met Donald Trump in George Steinbrenner's box in 1987 at a Yankees game, and the former president called me the next morning and said, "Well, I met your man. He's really got it. This guy could go all the way."
And Donald Trump, like Richard Nixon, cannot wait to hand billions in trade and technology to other countries, especially Israel, who is totally in bed with China. Every time the Don slaps a couple of $100 billion in tariffs and limits trade with China, in steps Israel with stolen US technology, and the trading bloc of Russia, China, Israel and the Belt and Road Initiative draw ever closer. This includes Turkey, who actually makes parts for the Lockheed crown jewel of technology, the F-35, as does Israel. Now they are all drawing closer together thanks to the Trump administration's policy making that clearly benefits Trump's owner, Netanyahu, and the Israeli firstocrat. Pechenik is of particular interest due to his incredible credentials, membership of the Council of Foreign Relations up until at least 2012, and employment as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under Henry Kissinger, Cyrus Vance and James Baker. In early 2018, Dr. Steve Pechenik said this.
What are you seeing here? Well, I'm glad you feel the storm come, but quite frankly, the storm was over a year ago when we brought in Trump. What you're seeing now is basically the aftermath of a major storm that had occurred, with no one really understanding how Trump came in and how we and the intelligence community and others had helped to bring Trump to the forefront. The storm is over. Hillary is over. Mueller's over. The FBI is over. The CIA, certain elements are over. That's why Pompeo, who was number one at West Point, was put in. We have several military generals in charge. We have every congressional district. We have a military installation or project. So basically, we're not worried about any Democrats or congressmen. If you look at the map of the United States, we in the intelligence and military community are basically in charge, and Trump is on top of that. And I'm not upset about it, and I'll tell you why.
Despite Pechenik working closely with Alex Jones and Roger Stone, his name is never, ever mentioned in the mainstream media. This must be examined closely. With Trump mirroring Nixon, prone to say one thing and do another, we find Nixon making his name as a red-baiting ally of Senator Joseph McCarthy, but as president, he opened relations with Communist China. Nixon ran for president based on a Southern strategy of appealing to the white devotees of Jim Crow, but his administration backed affirmative action. Nixon made his name as a conservative, but presided over the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and expansion of the welfare state. And, just like Nixon, the narrative presented in this video contends that Trump will talk a conservative pro-America talk while handing billions in contracts to Israel in a manufactured trade war with China. His aides and associates will talk an anti-communist talk.
China is in control of everything in America, but it's definitely being directed from China, and they plan to kill Trump in March. I thought I would just let people know that Fort Bragg's preparing for that.
Whilst facilitating the rise of Greater Israel in the same manner Nixon facilitated the rise of China. If there is one thing you will easily take from this documentary, is that Israel is a Russian client state, not an American one, and though the levels of control are debatable, Israel has always been a Soviet-era invention and backdoor to the West. Now, why haven't I heard about these Russian Soviet-era spy rings in Israel? No CNN or Alex Jones coverage here. And with Israel playing such a central role in the US high-technology industry, filled with Soviet-era missile and aeronautical engineers, you can bet Elbit Systems, who is building major componentry for Lockheed's crown jewel, the F-35, is not full of alleged Jews from Yemen, Morocco, or Ethiopia. It's full of alleged Jews from Russia. Ask Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, an alleged Jew from Russia who is widely considered a Soviet-era KGB asset by various commentators in Israel. Ask him. He loves the F-35. Even WikiLeaks revealed how close he is to Putin, But don't worry, my US taxpayer friends. I'm sure Lockheed and the US Defense Department considered all these things before handing over the best US taxpayer dollars could design and build to Israel. And Russia. And China. And Iran. And bit to India. You get the picture. No wonder Putin is smiling, as is President of China Xi Jinping and even Rouhani in Iran. Let's keep going on. Here is Donald Trump.
And at the end of this meeting, I think we really came to a lot of good conclusions. A really good conclusion for Israel, something very strong. He's a believer in Israel. He's a fan of Bibi, and really helping him a lot and will help him a lot, which is good for all of us.
On the other hand, the increasing influence of the workers and farmers and the rising political importance of men of science may transform the United States into a welfare state with a planned economy.
Who are we preparing to go to war against or defend ourselves from?
Senator, the Secretary of Defense outlined in the National Defense Strategy the challenges that we face. Part of the emphasis in the strategy was the shift from a focus on terrorism to great power competition, with a particular emphasis on the long-term challenges of China and Russia. It refers to both of those as opportunities for peaceful competition, deterrence, and then the ability to prevail in a conflict should we have to. The strategy is both a classified and unclassified option, but it lays out and goes through the challenges that we face.
So we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars defending ourselves from China, while major corporation after major corporation is shutting down in the United States of America and moving to China. Anything incongruous about that?
On the other hand, the increasing influence of the workers and farmers and the rising political importance of men of science may transform the United States into a welfare state with a planned economy. Incredible as it may seem, Stalin's Soviet Union was once at the center of Israeli identity.
You're an educated sort of a swine. An artist is a bloke who can hold two fundamentally opposing views and still function. Who dreamed that one up?
Scott Fitzgerald.
Well, Fitzgerald knew a thing or two. And I'm definitely functioning. As a good socialist, I'm going where the money is. As a good capitalist, I'm sticking with the revolution because if you can't beat it, spy on it. Don't look like that, George. It's the name of the game these days.